Are you the type of player that will look up the S tier comps for any given patch and try to angle those every single game? And then once that stops working, you'll reach out to other TFT players for advice, and they'll look at you and say, oh yeah, you just need to play more flex. So you try that. You try to play a wider variety of comps, try to stay uncontested, and now all you're doing is just losing to those same S tier comps that you were playing before. And so the cycle repeats. Well, Tactician, if that sounds like you, then you are in the right place. I'm Professor Blepp, and today I'm going to answer the age-old question that TFT players have been asking: is it better to force or to flex? Are you ready for the answer? It depends, just like everything in TFT. It's a bit of a cop-out, but there's a very good reason for that. Fundamentally, the issue actually isn't with whatever style you're playing, but you're probably just playing it wrong due to some common misconceptions. Now, before we dive into those, if you haven't yet watched the lesson on line selection, I would recommend you do that first, as we're going to touch on some concepts that I've already covered in that video. But before we dive into anything else, let's cover 3 common misconceptions you'll hear about forcing or flexing, starting with number 1. Forcing is low skill. While this has an element of truth to it, it's mostly an exaggeration. What's actually happening here is that to actually force a comp successfully requires a different set of skills than you do when you play more flexibly. Most players can pretty quickly tell you how to play comps from the good positions, but to truly and really force a comp successfully, you need to also know how to play it from low roll positions, play it contested, among a lot of other things. Otherwise, your LP simply won't go up. Myth number 2, playing flex means you're playing a different comp every single game. Definitely not true. The final board you end up with has nothing to do with whether you're actually playing flexibly. All that happens on stages 2 and 3. So a player could end up on the same comp 10 times in a row, but still actually be playing flex. And myth number 3, playing flex means being flexible on your level 8 rolldown and pivoting between different compositions. Definitely not true. This is the one that trips up players the most because pivoting and flex play are pretty different things. You'll often see streamers on their level 8 rolldown buying multiple forecasts, and then when they hit an early upgrade, suddenly pivot their board into something different. This takes a lot of skill and practice and isn't something that most players can emulate. In fact, if you try and copy this, you'll probably end up bot 4ing more than if you just simply stuck to the composition you initially went for. Okay, so we've talked a lot about what force and flex play isn't, but then what is it actually? Well, at the end of the day, it all boils down to line selection, and the more lines you know, the better you'll be. And the easiest way to break that down is with an analogy. Let's say the comp you're playing is a destination that you're trying to reach. Now, if you're a force type player, what you have is few destinations that you can actually go to, but you know many different roads that go to that destination. Each of those roads represents essentially a line. So while other players may always take the same line to that comp, you know a couple of different ways to get there that might get you ahead of them and therefore be able to play it more consistently. On the other hand, if you're more of a flex player, you know a lot of different destinations, but you might only know 1 or 2 roads that will get you to each of them. So the way you get ahead of other players and avoid a traffic jam is by simply picking the destination that is least contested or the least popular and going for that direction. In both cases, to actually play well require the same thing, knowing a lot of roads, that is lines. The more lines you know, the better you'll be at adapting to any given TFT situation and the better player you'll be. And really, what it takes to be a challenger player is the combination of the two. Not only do you know a lot of destinations, but you also know multiple ways to get to each of those destinations and sometimes even jump between them and pivot successfully. Okay, well, hopefully you understand a little bit better now, but how does that translate to you actually playing better? Well, there's 3 things you should focus on no matter what your playstyle. Number 1, know how to play around your encounters. If you want to force a comp successfully, you need to know which encounters are ideal for your comp and which are not as good. For example, if you play a lot of 1-cost reroll, high econ portals like Scuttle Puddle can be dangerous as players hit their 4-cost boards quicker and more consistently, as well as have a higher cap. In those cases, you may need to roll more aggressively to hit early, save HP, and bleed into a top 4 rather than playing to win out. Or if you're playing flex, you'll need to know which compositions are favored in these encounters and angle those and avoid the ones that are not. For example, for high econ portals, once again, favor 3-cost rerolls and fast 8 and avoid 1 and 2-cost reroll unless you have the right spot. Second thing to understand is augments. If you're flexing comps, you should know if there are any augments that greatly boost a comp and give you a good reason to lean in that direction no matter your spot. A good example here is something like Bronze for Life. There's usually 1 or 2 boards that go really well with this augment, but aren't going to work without it. So when you are offered it and can pivot into it successfully, can lead to a lot of firsts. On the other hand, if you're forcing a comp, you need to know how good a bunch of augments are for that comp, know which ones are at least decent and not worth rolling over the ones that are truly terrible and you should always pass up. And number 3, of course, is your opening items. If you're forcing a comp, know which components are important for your comp and should be saved for specific items, as well as what to prioritize on carousel, as you often need to rely on getting BIS setups to cap high and beat out the lobby. On the other hand, if you're flexing, a lot of the time you're playing for your strongest board, which means you're making early item slams on upgraded units that make sense, and from there you need to understand which comps you can play into based on your current position. Or if you don't have a strong board, know which comps you should angle from a lose streak position. Now, I know a lot of players look down on hard forcing comps, but if you are a newer player, I would recommend sticking to a small number of comps and learning those in depth. This will be much better for building fundamentals like econ and itemization than if you're constantly jumping between different comps. Try to know at least one AD line and one AP line, as well as at least one reroll comp and one fast 8 comp. Then, once you have a good grasp of those comps, you can branch out by identifying when you have a bad spot for the comps you know, and then play something a little bit more experimental. But of course, the other way to quickly learn is simply just to watch streamers and look at how they select their lines. If they pick a line for a comp that doesn't make sense to you, then it probably means there's something to be learned there. Otherwise, if you want to figure it out yourself, well, chances are you can, but it's going to take a lot of losing before you start winning. If you enjoyed this lesson or have your own thoughts about force and flex play, highly encourage you to drop me a comment below and I'll respond to it. It really helps me out as well. If you haven't yet subscribed, I'm definitely planning on doing a more deeper dive into stages 2 and 3 and how to actually play flex in those stages. So if you want to know when those go up, make sure to subscribe. And I'm still on a streaming hiatus, but if you want to know when I next go live and catch me stream sometime, then follow me at Twitch at BlepTheCat. Otherwise, until next time, class dismissed.